Assalamu alaikum friends, how are you? Hope all of you are doing good. As you know that the exams are near, so I thought that I should upload a video on other subjects, right? Those who don't know, I have been uploading videos on AFM and SBR and SBL, but I didn't touch audit at all. So this is my first audit video, right? The AAA. So by the title and the thumbnail, you must be knowing that this is the solution for March-June 2021 paper, the latest past paper for AAA. Okay, and in this video, it's not just the solution. I'm also going to give you the tricks that you need to pass, and also how you answer and how to get the professional marks. Okay, in this, I'm only going to solve question number 1 in this video. Question number 2 and 3 will be uploaded later. Okay, but before I go to the paper, the March-June 2021 paper, it's very important that we know the syllabus of AAA, how it will be tested. As you can see on the screen, you have the content and the style of the exam. Okay, so AAA, we have two sections, section A and section B. Section A is one question, and that one question is 50 marks. Section B, there are two questions, 25 marks each. Okay, so since section A is 50 marks, the length of that scenario will be a bit heavy, but section B, it will be smaller case studies. Okay, in section A is very important because we also have what is known as 4 professional marks. The 4 professional marks is in your section A, so you have to be very careful not only about the content that you write. How are you going to write it? What are the format that you are going to use? It matters a lot. Okay, and then so these are some areas that you will be tested in question 1. Okay, planning, risk assessment, gathering evidence, ethical and professional considerations. This will always be there. Always be there. Ethics. In fact, ethics is so important. It is there in all the SSCA papers, especially in the professional papers. All the professional papers have ethics in it. Okay. Section B, even though we are not doing the question 2 and 3 here, but let us go through the content of it. It consists of completion, review, and reporting. So this is more like the later stage in your audit procedure, right? Which is completion, review, and reporting. The initial stages are tested in section A. For example, planning. Planning, obviously you have to do planning first, right? Reporting, review comes later, last stage. But first is planning, then you have to see the risk, then you have to gather evidence. All those things are in section A. Okay, and section B can come from any of these areas. It could come from regulatory environment. Ethical and professional considerations can come here as well in section B, right? Quality control and practice management. Then planning and conducting an audit of historical information and other assignments. So any of these areas, so this shows that you have to go through all those areas and you have to learn all those areas. You have to be a pro. Okay, so the technique that you have to apply in audit, before that let me remove this misconception that most of the students have, that audit is the toughest paper, because you go by the pass rates and thinking that audit is very tough paper. My friend has been failing, the people I know have been failing 4-5 times, so there are low chances that I also might pass, I will fail. That's what most of the students think, and then they come with this mindset in the exam, and then what happens? Guess what happens? They ultimately fail. So when you go to the exam hall, number one technique, don't go with that mindset that audit is very tough, I cannot do it, I will just do however much I can do, I will try to manage somehow to pass, to get to that 50%. If you go with this mindset, you are never going to pass. Not only audit, any paper. Because your mindset matters a lot. The confidence that you have for this paper. It does not matter how hard you work. Sometimes, even if you have worked 24 hours, let me say that maybe you are studying 21 hours or 20 hours. Okay, it does not guarantee that you are going to pass this paper. Okay, To pass this paper, you have to be smart enough. You have to be hardworking, but have to be smart enough also, because this is not about learning some concepts. This is a paper where you have to apply more of your like professional judgment. You see, it's like more subjective kind of nature. This paper. That's why this paper is hard. That makes this paper harder compared to other papers like AFM, taxation, SBR, SBL, because those papers we know that this is the content. We go through those content. We have some calculations, number crunching. So we know that this is how we have to do it. We practice, and then with practice we get better. So we know that exactly this is the format we can do it. Audit is not like that. Audit and SBL are like more like similar. They are very practical. Okay. Same question if you are doing 20 times also, it's not good. It does not guarantee that you're going to pass, because every paper is different. You have to see the nature of question. Every question is different. Also, time management. Time management is another second criteria that you have to fulfill to pass this paper, because you have to write a lot. So you have to practice yourself. While practicing also, you have to time under the exam condition, and then you have to give this paper, because you are giving this on a CB platform. That means you have to type. Okay, because I get request from most of the students asking me questions on especially this paper. Most of the requests are on these papers. Even though I've been making SBR and AFM, people are like, please make the video on AAA, how to pass and all. So good news is, after this paper, okay, I'm going to make a video on everything is prepared. I'm just going to speak. Okay, the lecture is coming up. That is known as the revision series for AAA, which is a 3-day revision series. So this revision series will go for 3 days, and it will cover all the important aspect of audit and assurance, advanced audit and assurance, the AAA, which will run for 3 days starting from today. And after the 3 days gets over, the next 3 days I'll be doing audit, right? Audit the F8, the revision series. So in this revision series, I'm going to cover all the important aspect. It's like a summary of everything. Okay, so that does not guarantee that you're going to pass by watching that, but it's a good thing, good revision to quickly go through all the important concepts in a short span of time, because time is not left much, and this is not the right time to be in the study text. Okay, this is the time to do more of past papers and revision kit. You must have at least finished a revision kit once at that by this time. Okay, but you should keep this in mind that definitely this is one of the hardest paper to pass, keeping this in mind that this is a subjective paper, not a objective paper. Not, you don't have any number crunching, maybe one or two if you have to calculate some ratios and all, okay, somewhere, but it's more like you have to write. Okay, writing part is more in this. Okay, but don't worry, you don't have to panic. After this video, I'm sure that you will get that confidence, number one. Number two, you will learn the tips and techniques to pass AAA with more smart techniques. Okay, so now on that, and there is a way of checking also whether you're confident enough in a subject or not, or whether your knowledge is capable enough or not. In any paper, just pick up any past paper randomly. Okay, don't decide, don't go by the questions. Okay, this is easy, so I'm going to do this. This is tough, so I'm not going to do it. It's not like that. After you this is definitely after you have finished all your preparation, all your revision kit is over, textbook knowledge is over, everything. Okay, if you want to revise again, pick up any past paper, do any past paper in 3 or 15 minutes only, all three questions. Okay, check two things: how well did you finish in the time allocated? Did you finish it, or did you left many things unleft? Okay, if you have finished at least 80% or 80 to 90%, 80 to 90% also, if you have finished writing, that means you are in a good, you're on the right track. You just have to push up a little bit more to reach that higher level so that you can finish more. Okay, number two, you check with the answer. You might not get all answers right, but at least try to see that are you getting 60 to 70% right. Because when you're writing, just check the confidence. Are you able to read the information in the time given? Are you able to know that this is the exact problem? Are you able to identify that this is the issue and these are the points that I need to write? So if I'm able to do it, okay, you're not having much issue. Maybe here and there little bit you are having doubt and small error you might make, but on a bigger picture you are getting things right, you are understanding, you are able to pick up from the case study you are reading, you are highlighting the important information, you are able to link with the exhibits. This means that you're on the right track. These are very good right? Because if you can do any one past paper, why did I say one past paper? Because if you are able to do the way you do a past paper will tell you how you are going to do the other papers also. Okay, if you are doing any past paper, if you do it well enough, I would say 60 to 70% you're scoring in it. That means congrats, hats off, you're definitely going to pass this paper. But it does not mean that you stop at this that age. Okay, you should push yourself more to reach 80, 90. Okay, but if you're, see, you yourself will understand through your experience, because everyone has this experience, right? That this was my experience, I think according to me I was satisfied, I've done well enough. So you also will understand within yourself, only you will understand how you have given the paper. So based on that you can decide, okay, that I'm prepared enough now, I just have to push a little bit more. Oh, I'm not prepared enough, I have to go through a lot. So this is that stage that you have to discover yourself. Now where are you standing? Are you standing below the 50% or above the 50% category? Okay, if you're not able to see, because the marking schemes are there, so I don't think that you need anyone to mark it for you. You can go through it and you can check your answers. Okay, so with that, let's start our today's discussion on March June 2021 paper, question number 1. Okay, so as you can see, this is the screenshot of the screen. Your screen will look like this. Okay, on the left hand side you will be having all the exhibits. There are 5 exhibits and the requirements are given, then the response options on the briefing note and spreadsheet. So typing and all, you have to use the briefing note, this one, because you're going to type here. But if you have to use some numbers or something, calculations you have to do, you can do it in the spreadsheet here. Okay, and if you want to do some working or something, you can use the scratch pad over here. Okay, but remember, whatever you write in the scratch pad, they will not be marked. If you want something to be marked, it has to be in this too. It has to be in your briefing note either or in your spreadsheet. It has to be in your response options. Scratch pad is a rough working. Okay, and then we have the calculator here, that which you can use. And if you want to highlight option is here. If you want to cut something, strike through, and the currency symbol is here. Okay, and down here, which is not here on the screen right now, but down here there will be a help button or function. If you want to, if you need any help or you are finding it tough, then that help button and that function button is down below. You can click there and see it. Okay, so this is question 1 of 3. This is how you'll be given. So how do you start this question 1? Okay, another good question, which question to do, question 1, 2 or 3? It's your choice. Okay, it's your choice. But again, I would say, if I was the one who is giving this paper, I would start with question number 1, because question number 1 carries 50 marks and also the 4 professional marks lies in question number 1. And guys, when you are giving the paper, okay, during first hour you are going, your mind will be fresh because you are going with nothing in your mind. But last hours you will be very restless, you will be panicking, stressing out, so you cannot think. Okay, and section and question number 1 requires a lot of thinking, a lot of time. It needs bigger amount of time because it's 50 minutes, 50 marks. So 15 to 1.8, how many minutes you have to spend, right? 90 minutes. You have to spend 90 minutes on this, 1 hour and 30 minutes on this. But where is the others? Others are 36 minutes only you have to spend. 25 into 1.8. 36 and 36. Right? It's 36 or it's 40. I think it's 40, right? It's 40, guys. It's not 36. It's 40 and 40. Yeah? So you can check it for yourself. Even more than twice of this you need time here. And this 90 minutes not only you are spending on writing, this 90 minutes altogether, plus that 15 minutes you have, because it's a 3 or 15 minutes paper. So this 15 minutes which additional that you are getting, you can utilize for reading these exhibits in question number 1. Right? So as soon as you get the paper, first don't go and start reading the exhibit. Avoid answering also, because you anyway cannot answer without reading the exhibit. So but don't go and start reading exhibits. First you have to read the background. Okay? You need to read the background, and after the background you have to start with the requirements. After you finish reading all the requirements, then you have to go to the exhibits and you can read it. So this together, this reading exhibits, reading requirements, and then writing together, you should spend 90 minutes. Not on writing only. Okay, that means you have to be very quick also to read the information and retain it. Definitely everything you cannot remember, because there are so many exhibits, you might forget. When you go to the second exhibit, you will forget what you read in the first exhibit. That's why highlight option is there. So highlight the important words. Okay. So let us start. It is 1st July 2005. You are a manager in the audit department. Who are you? Who are you? You are a manager in the audit department of Chief and Company, a firm of chartered certified accountants. You are assigned to audit of the PALE company, which has financial year ending 30th September 2005. PALE company manages timber plantations, its core business being the management of timber plantations and the production and sale of range of timber products. Okay, so it produces, it sells, and it manages timber plantations. It is not currently a listed entity. So these are the following exhibits. Okay, you don't have to read the exhibits in detail, but you can read from here, you can understand. Just have an overview. Briefly, you can read. The first one is the partner's email. Okay, so an email which you have received from Herbie reviews the audit engagement partners. Second is the background information. This will help you in audit planning, because section A, what did we say? That audit planning, audit evidence, all this will come in section A. Okay. Notes from meeting. A summary of business development. Discuss a recent meeting between the CFO and the audit engagement partner. We have the key performance indicators. A summary of financial as well as non-financial information. Notes from the phone call. A summary of issues raised by CFO during a discussion with audit engagement partner. So now we are going to go through the requirements. What are you supposed to do? You are supposed to respond to the instructions in the email from the audit engagement partner. And how the marks are there, it is allocated there. In the exhibit 1, it's allocated how the marks will be allocated. That 50 mark is not just for writing one whole paragraph. No. There are several requirements to get that 50 marks. And out of that 50, actually it's 46 marks. The 4 marks are your professional marks. Okay. How you will be awarded? You will be awarded for the presentation, for the logical flow, the way you're writing, the order of it, of the briefing notes, and the clarity of the explanations provided. You have to write all this in where? Briefing notes. You have to use briefing notes, right? This one. This response option to answer your section A. Okay. So in scenario, the exhibit 1, you can read all the requirements. So it makes sense that I have to start reading exhibit 1 first, because all my requirements are there. Okay. So let's start. to audit manager. So this is being sent to you because you are the audit manager, okay, from the engagement partner. This is regarding the audit planning and at this date. Okay, so now let's read. I hope you can see it clearly. I've zoomed it out. Okay, I have provided you with some information which you should be, all these things are very quick. Okay, there is nothing much facts here, so you can quickly read it. Okay, I have provided you with some information which you should use, which you should use to help you in planning the audit of PAIL for the financial year. As you know, PAIL is a new audit client of our firm. He's a new audit client of our firm because sometimes it could be that you are an existing auditor for that. Okay, I hope you are looking forward to working on this interesting new client, which is the first timber company we have secured as an audit client. He's the first timber company that the auditor has secured, right? It's very important. Why? Because when you're discussing audit procedures, audit planning, all this matters a lot. Whether they have whether the auditor has experience in that field or whether they don't. So whether it's new or whether it's existing, this matters a lot in your answer also. That's why you have to highlight this. Okay. You should also be aware that the management team is planning for PAIL to achieve a stock market listing within the next 2 years. So these are some important information, some facts that you have to highlight it. How you are going to use it, we'll see in the answer. When we actually go through the answer, I will show you how you are going to use this. I require you to prepare briefing notes for my own use in which you. What are you required to prepare? It's very important because your professional marks matters on which format you are using, how you are using it. So the format is briefing note. So make sure that you have to write it in a way of briefing note. Okay, I will show you after a while, after we finish reading all the exhibits, how to prepare briefing notes. So these are your requirements. Evaluate the business risk to consider in planning the audit of PAIL company. The main topic is business risk. Okay, when you're planning the audit, you have to consider this. 10 marks. Okay, you will also come to know how many points we have to write for the marks, number of marks given to us, because that is very important that you decide exactly beforehand how many points you are going to write. Okay. B, evaluate the audit risk to be considered in planning the audit of PAIL company. So this is the audit risk. This is 20 marks. Double. So this means when you are writing audit risk, you have to write more audit risk compared to business risk, double of it, looking at the marks. Now, in relation to the audit company's timber plantation asset, referred to in Exhibit 4, you are only required to consider audit risk relating to changes in fair value. So relating to this, which is in Exhibit 4, here you only have to consider the audit risk, okay, relating to the changes in fair value. Any other relevant audit risk relating to the timber plantation asset will be dealt with separately later in the planning stage of the audit. Okay. C, design the audit procedure. So the first one was about business risk and audit risk during the planning stage. Coming to B, this is about audit procedure. You have to design it to be performed in relation to the change in fair value of the timber plantation asset. Be very specific. Don't write general audit procedures. This is related to what changes in the fair value of the timber plantation asset. You have to design the audit procedure caused by the recent storms. Okay. Your procedure should include those relating to the evaluation of the expert appointed by management. Your procedure should include those relating to the evaluation of the expert appointed by the management and the work they have performed. So when you're writing the procedure, designing it, you should include these things as well. Don't forget it. D, using Exhibit 5. So they have clearly mentioned using Exhibit 5. Explain the ethical issues. Ethical issues are almost always the last requirement they ask. Okay. And other audit planning implications. So it's not just ethical issue, but also other audit planning implications which arise in relation to the phone call from the company's chief finance officer for 10 marks. So this 10 marks is not wholly for the ethical issue. It is partially for ethical issue, partially for other audit planning implications. This is relating to phone call, okay? So be very specific. Thank you. So there are 4 requirements that you have to answer. Okay. Now, so exhibit 1 we have over. Now we are going to exhibit 2. Exhibit 1 is almost, they will be giving requirements and some brief this thing, okay? Usually exhibit 1 is not so lengthy. So coming to exhibit 2. Background information. Background information you can use for any requirements. Okay, it is not specific that background, because it is the first requirement after the after the first, this is the second requirement. It does not mean that only for the first requirement only you will answer this. So it's not like that, that this is the first question, so I will use first requirement. Sorry, the first exhibit. So this is the second requirement, I will use the second exhibit. It's not like that. It can be, but it's not always like that. Company background is an exhibit that you can apply for any requirements. You have to use for any requirements. All the requirements it is applicable. It is not specific to one requirement. Okay. Pale company owns and manages several large timber plantations. So the main thing, okay, whenever in an audit you are given, right, in section A, you have to understand what is the main thing, which line the business is in. So here it is about timber plantations. So everything you write have to be based on this. The audit, the planning, the audit procedure, the audit risk, the business risk. Okay. Approximately 5% of the trees are harvested each year. The company immediately processes the timber which is harvested from the felled trees in its own sawmills. A factory where trees are processed into logs and other timber products. The processed timber, which is mainly logs and planks of wood, is then sold to a range of customers, including construction companies and furniture manufacturers. Approximately 30% of timber is exported. Your firm was appointed as an auditor to Pale in March 2005 following the resignation of the previous auditor, Harry Associates. Okay, so they have resigned. This is also very important. Why they have resigned? Were there any problem? Or all those things you have to, it's important, okay, when they resign. As a part of your firm's client acceptance procedure, communication was received from Hair Associate, indicating that their reason for resignation was due to the retirement of the partner responsible for the audit, and that they had no issues to bring to your attention regarding the audit. That means there was no issue regarding this resignation. Okay. Pale has a small internal audit department with 2 staff who report to the company CFO, as the company does not have an audit committee. They have a small audit department, 2 staff who reports to company CFO, no audit committee. Notes from meeting. Notes from meeting are very important exhibit. You have to use it extensively, because here most of the issues are discussed here already. Notes from meeting. Okay. So here, how he has attended, audit engagement partner CFO, accounting policies. Mark York confirms that Pale applies the requirement of IS 41 agriculture as follows. This shows that not only audit, you have to be equally good in your SBR standards also, right? To be good in audit. Otherwise, you will struggle a lot, because you heavily have to use the IFRS and IAS standards in audit. Standing timber, which means trees which are growing in the timber plantation prior to being felled are biological assets, measured at fair value less cost to sell. The change in the fair value less cost to sell is included in profit and loss for the period in which it arises. Felled trees are agricultural produce. So this is biological asset, this is agricultural produce. The failed trees, which are measured at fair value less cost to sell, at the point of harvest immediately after felling, trees are processed so that the value of the failed trees awaited processing is minimal at any point in time. Processed timber such as logs are measured in accordance with IS2. A technical expert from the audit firm has confirmed that the accounting policies outlined above appear appropriate in the context of PAL's activity. So they are saying that this is appropriate, this IS 41. Coming to international expansion. Remember, we have to talk about business risk and audit risk. So from here, you might get some business risk. PAL company's operations are currently all based in its home jurisdictions. Currently, they are local. However, the board has recently approved the acquisition of several large areas of tropical rainforest in Farland, a remote developing country. So this is a remote developing country. This could be a business risk. Okay. The expansion will allow the company to process new types of timber for which there's a significant demand from luxury furniture manufacturers. The acquisition of the areas of the rainforest will cost 25 million and the purchase is due to take place in August 2005. The cost of 25 million is equivalent to the fair value of the rainforest. Farland uses the same currency as PAL, so the expansion is not creating any foreign exchange risk exposure to the company. So there is no foreign exchange risk because same currency. The purchase is being funded through how did they purchase that? Through share issue to existing and new shareholders who are mainly family members of PAL family who established the company 20 years ago. A share issue was the only option for funding the international expansion of the companies at the limit of its bank borrowing agreement. And the International Development Agency has agreed to provide a grant of 20 million to assist PAL company in its Farland expansion on condition that the expansion represents sustainable and ethical business practices. So this is the condition. The grant is provided specifically for training the local workforce and building accommodation for the workforce in a town near to the rainforest. The grant is due to be received when? September 2005. And the relevant expenditure will commence in November 2005. Mark York is planning to recognize half of the amount received as income in this year's financial statements on the basis that it will cover some of the management's expenses in planning the international expansion. Gold standard. So exhibit 3 is really long, okay? Because lots of facts that you have to use for your requirements are in the minutes. The company is proud to have recently been awarded an industry gold standard accreditation for its sustainable timber management. Okay. To achieve the gold standard, which denotes the highest possible level of sustainable timber management and ethical business practice, the company must adhere to a number of strict standards. This includes maintaining the biodiversity of the timber plantation, ensuring that rare species of trees are not harvested and that animal habitats within the timber plantation are presented. To maintain the gold standard accreditation, one condition is that at least 80% of the timber sold must be harvested according to the strict standards set by industry regulators. The gold standard applies to all of the company's activities, including the Farland expansion. Even this qualifies for the gold standard, which is good. Contract with the Royal Company. This is the next issue. The company's revenue has increased this year, largely due to its signing a significant contract with a new customer, Royal Company. The contract was signed on the basis of PAL receiving the gold standard accreditation for its timber. Legal case. A group of employees has recently commenced legal action against the company, claiming that the breaches of health and safety, so breaches of health and safety guidelines regularly taking place. The company has made some redundancies this year, which has put pressure on the remaining staff to work harder in order to maintain productivity. The employees are alleging that this has caused an increase in the number of accidents at work. So number of accidents, some of which have resulted in fatalities. The company's management and the legal advisors believe that the legal claim, which amounts to 19 million, is unjustified and this will not be successful. Mark York does not intend to recognize a provision for the claim or make any disclosure in the financial statements. So they are not even planning to make a disclosure in relation to this issue as it is at such an early stage in the legal proceedings. Use of expert changing the fair value due to recent storms. One requirement is for this part, right? Remember? So here, relating to this, we only have to talk about audit risk, not business risk. In the last month, and how do I know this? Because I have read the requirements. So this helps when you read the requirements before reading the exhibits. You exactly know in the exhibits what are you searching for and what are the main things that you have to highlight. So in the last month, several storms caused damage to some areas of timber plantation. An independent expert has been appointed by management to determine the extent of damage caused and to quantify any financial implications, including determination of the change in the fair value of the standing trees which have been damaged by the storm. The expert's report indicates a large number of trees have completely been destroyed. This has been completely being destroyed according to whom? The expert's report. And many have been badly damaged based on the expert's report. Management has determined. So based on him, that means they are relying on this. Management has determined that the reduction in the fair value of 70.5 billion should be recognized in respect of the timber plantation asset, recognizing the statement of financial position. Exhibit 4 key performance indicator. Okay. The information in the table below will be published as a part of the annual report in a section titled Key Results for the year, which forms part of the management's commentary on the company's performance. The financial information is before recognizing the change in this is before recognizing the change in fair value of the timber plantation caused by the recent storm, and also before accounting for the government grant. Okay. So let's go through. Even though you cannot read, but make sure that you go through this to see whether it's improving or declining, and you can write something like this. You can show by an arrow. Right? Or maybe you can highlight those areas where it's not so good, or you might highlight the positive things. So something like that, you can do it. Which later on, when you come here, you can quickly identify the figure that you have to take and quickly identify, okay, revenue is declining or improving and all. Okay. So don't just avoid it. Even though you don't have to read anything, it's just numbers. Okay. So let us start with the revenue. Revenue, if you see, it's a 5.5% increase, which is good. Okay. Operating profit is also good, even though the increase is less than the revenue. Profit before tax, 30% it has increased, which is again, it's a good thing. Coming to the social and environmental key performance indicator. It was 85, now it is 82. Okay. Which is not so good. Okay. Number of employees also reduced. Total staff days lost due to accidents is greater now. Okay. So you also provided with the following information related to balances which extracted from the management account. Total asset. Okay. And 2004 it is 545. Timber plantation. 500 million. This amount relating to the standing. So this amount relating to the standing timber is before accounting for any change in value caused by the recent storm. Okay. They didn't take the impact of the recent storm in this picture. Okay. Inventory. Inventory increased from 9.2 to 15.4. The increased level of inventory is explained by the management as follows. In the last 2 months, industrial action by the country's port meant no containers of processed timber could be shipped to our export customers. So this is a risk, isn't it? It's a business risk. Industrial action, that's why they couldn't export for 2 months. So no containers to export customers for 2 months. That's why inventory increased. So the missed export sales so far amount to about 2.1 million. We continue to harvest and process timber during this time, leading to an increased level of inventory. This industrial action is ongoing. It's ongoing. It's again a risk. Cash. Cash, if you see a decline from 6.8 to 4.5, it's not good. Cash levels are depleted this year due to inflationary pressure and demands for higher wages from our employees, which we have met. Exhibit 5, the last exhibit, notes from the phone call. Okay. So request from Mark York. Mark York is who? He's the CFO. Pale Company publishes a wide range of non-financial, social and environmental key performance indicators as part of the annual report, indicating the 3 shown as part of the exhibit 4. Mark has asked if a firm can provide assurance on this KPIs. Can you provide assurance on those KPIs? Mark is asking, as part of performing the annual audit. Mark has suggested that in order to pay for this extra work, the agreed audit fee will be increased. So this is like an ethical issue. Can you see? They're telling that if you provide assurance on this key performance indicators, your fee will be increased by 20%. Assuming that the assurance provided by KPS is favorable. News report. So this news report is the last. Mark informed us that the news report has emerged in Farland alleging that Palin paid a government official a sum of 15,000 in order to secure the purchase of the tropical rainforest, which is taking place next month. It's like you are bribing. You are giving bribe to the government. Mark wanted to make us aware of the story, which is spreading quickly on social media, and to inform us that this incentive payments, are routine business practice in Farland. He also strongly urged us not to investigate the payment as part of our audit procedure. So he's telling not to investigate. This is again an ethical issue, saying that the amount is insignificant. He suggested that making inquiries regarding the payment might mean more media attention is focused on the issue, which he is keen to avoid given that the companies plan to obtain a stock market listing within the next 2 years. So he just wants to obtain the listing within the next 2 years. That's why he wants to hide these things. Okay. So now we have gone through the scenario entirely. Now is the time for you to use your writing skills. How are you going to attack this question? Decide beforehand how many points you are going to write. Okay. When you're writing audit, okay, usually I don't say this. I always say do an answer, then check with the marking scheme and all. But for audit, okay, first let us go to the marking scheme. Okay, because marking scheme tells you what are the points. Then we are going to go through the answer to see how they have developed those answers. Okay, so business risk, it was for 10 marks. Now how is that 10 marks allocated? Up to 2 marks for each business business risk evaluated. In addition, half a mark for each relevant trend or calculation which forms a part of relevant explanation of the risk. If you are giving some calculation or showing some trend, half a mark you will get. Okay, so max 2 marks. Okay, 2 marks for each business risk evaluated. That means 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. So you have to write 5 points. 5 points, because 5 into 2 you will get the 10 marks. Okay, don't write 10 points. Okay, because it's impossible that you can come up with the 10 points. First of all, they will never ask you like that 10 points, 20 points. No. So 5 points, which is worth 20 marks. Now, before you write this answer in your mind, or you can write in your scratch pad, the rough note. What are the points? Like in bullet points like this, you can write. This is called planning. You are planning your answer. What are the 5 points that you are going to write? And when you're writing the 5 points, use separate subheadings and then write. So you can write 5 separate paragraphs for writing this. Okay. So if you see the business risk, one is international expansion. From the subheading of the notes, if you see the notes in exhibit 3, let us go to exhibit 3, because exhibit 3 gives you most of the risk. Note from meeting. Okay, so from this words you can even take words from here. The subheading you can take from here only the points. One is gold standard, the other one is international expansion. Then what do we have? We have legal case, contract, all those things you can pick up. Okay, because picking up is very important. How you pick up the answer is very important. You can write beautifully, that's not a problem, but you should first know the points what to write about. If you don't know the points, then what's the use of writing beautifully the wrong things? So international expansion, this could be a business risk. Gold standard accreditation, another is legal case. Damage to assets caused by the storm, again another is. Liquidity is another risk, because they have a bank loan and all. That's why they took shares, remember, to purchase. Industrial action, then incentive payment. So there are so many things. If you see the market scheme, they will give you more than that is required, because you only need 5 points to get the 10 marks. So in your answer, or write 5 points only. Don't write more than that. Don't write less than that. You should not write all the points. It is just for understanding. You can later read it and just know that, okay, these are also the answers, because marking scheme, they always try to give all the possible answers. that a candidate can write or think of. That's why there are more than that is required. If you see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, they're giving 7 points here. So out of the 7, you can write any 5. Okay. Coming to audit risk. This is still beyond the marking scheme. Okay, audit risk is 20 marks. So how are you going to get marks here? Up to 3 marks for each audit risk. Unless otherwise indicated, marks may be awarded for other relevant risk that is not included in the marking guide. Sometimes you might write other risk that is not there in the list. Still you will get marks if they are appropriate. Okay. Materiality calculation should be awarded 1 mark each. Remember, when you're talking about audit risk, you have to talk about materiality also. It matters. So for this calculating, you will be getting 1 mark each. That means maximum 3 marks. Calculation also you have to use because you have that table there. Key performance indicators and some calculations are there. Okay. In addition, half a mark for each relevant trend or calculation. Same like part A, business risk. Okay. Which forms part of a relevant explanation of the risk. So maximum 2 marks. So how are you going to get the 2 marks? Okay. This is, see, I told you, new audit client. When it's a new client, it's a risk because you're not exposed to their industry risk, right? For the first time, you don't have the experience, so it's a risk. Audit is new client. Number 2, corporate governance. Again, 2 marks. Pressure on results, right? You have been told that don't investigate for that extra payment. So it's a pressure. Corporate governance is there because audit committee is not there. So it's a type of a corporate governance risk. Then government grant, up to 4 marks. More marks is here. Because you have more points, you can write more in this. Wherever you can write more information is given in the scenario to write. Marks will be more in that one. For example, government grant is one of it. Government grant has been repeated in many exhibits, not just one. Legal case. Legal case again you can take as a audit risk also. Changes in the fair value of the standing tree. This is also an audit risk. Inventory. Again audit risk. Going concern. So don't incorrectly go and put this under business risk and the business risk as an audit risk. You have to be very clear on what are the audit risks and what is the business risk. You have to differentiate that when you're reading the case study. That this is the business risk, these are the audit risk. Okay. So if you see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Definitely you don't need all these points. So total 20. Now it's up to you. That combination you can choose. For example, if you're writing this one, you will get 2 marks, 2 marks, then 4. And then you can do some calculations and get the marks, and some materiality calculations will give you 3 marks. So it's up to you how you do it. But after all, when you add up everything, you have to get 20 marks. Okay. In short, every risk is for 2 marks. Some has more than 2 marks where working is required or calculation is required. Then there you can give yourself more marks and come up to 20. The audit procedure. It was for, I think, 6 marks. It is for 6 marks. So 1 mark for each well-explained audit procedure, examples of which include. Here they have given all the possible answers. You don't have to write all. You just have to write 6 because 6 marks, right? So when the marks are less than 10, it is 1 mark for each point. Okay, but if the marks are more, like more than 10, like 10, 20, then it's 2 marks for a point. Okay, that's how you need to plan. So definitely we are not going to go through all this list now. We are going to cover them in the answer. Okay, these are the audit procedure. Part D was it's again for 10 marks. Ethical and audit planning implications. Here also 1 mark for each point explained. So you can divide equally. It's 10. So 5 marks for audit, 5 marks for ethical issues, 5 marks for audit planning. You can divide it like that. Then professional mark. How are you getting this professional marks? Please read this carefully. 1 mark for the heading. 1 mark for the introduction. 1 mark for use of headings within the briefing notes. That means subheadings that you are using. 1 mark for the clarity of comments that you have made. So now finally, let us go to the answer. Your answer should look something like this. Before you jump to the answer, make sure that you read that it's a briefing note. 1 mark for that. Make sure that you are writing to whom. This is the format of a briefing note. You have to write to whom you are writing. You are writing to the audit engagement partner. From whom? Who are you? You are an audit manager. So from whom? Don't write from me. From audit manager. What is the subject? Subject you have to choose. Okay. Make your subject brief, not long sentences. Okay, should not be more than 4 or 5 words. So make sure that you write the name of the company also. So this is about audit planning in relation to payroll company. Okay. Or if you just go through exhibit 1 here, you can exactly take from here itself the briefing note. What you can do is just replace. This 2 will come here and this 2 will go to from. Okay, because now you are sending to the audit engagement partner. And date will remain this date and subject you can use this subject. Audit planning for payroll company. So the same subject you can use. The same subject itself you can use it. Okay, and the date will remain same. You have to write this introduction. For that introduction, 1 mark you will get the professional marks. If you are not writing this introduction and directly going to start business risk, you will not you will lose that 1 mark, professional mark, because this is the format of a briefing note. You have to write the introduction. Now how are you going to write the introduction? Just I'm going to minimize this a bit so the whole introduction can be seen. Okay, how are you going to write this introduction? Introduction, when you have to write, just take up from here in your exhibit 1, all these things you have to write. Basically, what are you going to do? All the requirements that you're supposed to do, you are writing in the introduction. For example, you are supposed to evaluate business risk, audit risk, you have to design audit procedure, then we have to talk about ethical issues, all those things in short, summarize and write in the introduction. That's how you are going to write introduction. But it has to be in order. First, you're going to talk about the business risk, then the audit risk, then the audit procedure, then the ethical issues and other issues, professional issues. Okay, so let us read the introduction. Okay, I'm only going to do this one whole paper, the March-June 2021 audit paper. I will not be able to solve the other papers due to time. But definitely by seeing this one video, that's enough for you to pass. Okay, because it's same. The rules and the principles are same for any paper. The way you write briefing note, the way you write introduction. So I hope from this video you can take the maximum benefit. So this briefing notes have been prepared to assist in planning the audit of. You are writing the purpose of briefing note, the first line. This briefing note, why it is prepared? It has been prepared to assist in help in planning the audit of payroll company. Mention the name of the company. Audit which company? Okay, so now you can start that the note begins what you are writing the sequence of the briefing note. The note begins with the evaluation of the business risk. Exactly the same words you are taking from this requirement. Can you see? Evaluate business risk. So it begins with the evaluation of the business risk facing the company and continue by evaluating the audit risk. The second is audit risk, which should be considered in planning the audit. The notes also include audit procedure, recommended principle, audit procedure. Wordings here and there you can change, okay, according to you, the way you want to write, because introduction you can write in any way, but this words has to be there to plan in audit planning, okay, evaluation of business risk, evaluation of audit risk. These things has to be there in the introduction because that's what exactly you're going to do in the briefing paper. Okay, so Audit procedure which has been designed in respect of, you also have to write audit procedure, not just audit procedure. Relating to what? Change in the fair value to the company's timber plantation following a recent storm. As it is, you are writing. All these are there in the requirements only. You don't have to think, even think also. What are you going to write? It is there in the structure given, the order also is there. So finally, the notes discuss some ethical and other professional issues arising from the recent phone call with the company's CFO, which impact on our audit planning. Okay. So I hope this gives you an idea of how to write an introduction now. And this only you have to do in section A, because in section A only you have to write briefing paper. Section A only you have to write the professional marks you will get in section A only. In section B, question number 2 and 3, you don't have to follow this order, this introduction. You can straight away write the answer. But in section A, no. Okay, so now you start. You have write the subheading, business risk. I mean type business risk. Now, after you write business risk, don't explain business risk is this, business risk is that. No. Straight away go to the point. 5 points to get 10 marks. We went through the mark scheme. So international expansion. What is the risk relating to this? Gold stand accreditation. What is the risk relating to this? The legal case. The damage to assets caused by storm. The liquidity. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But we are definitely going to go through the others also. Even though you don't have to write the 2 extra. Okay. So let us go through A. International expansion. So how are you going to write this? Straight away you're going to say that when you're going to expand into far land, it will introduce you to business risk. Okay, the expansion into far land, right? That you're expanding into which country? So expansion into far land will introduce a business risk in that company. Okay, in that the company will be managing operations in a foreign country for the first time. Why it will be introduced to the business risk? Here you don't need your auditing knowledge. Here you can just write from the common sense also. For the first time when you're exposed to a country, it's a risk because you're managing that country for the first time. So you're managing operations in a foreign country for the first time. It's very common, right? I mean, come on. So I don't think the writing up to this much is hard. And I still don't know why people keep on saying that audit is very tough. I will not be able to do it. I understand the nature of audit. The nature of it is such that it makes it hard. But it does not mean that you will not pass. Just don't limit yourself that I'm going to fail. Okay, the moment you think, you are definitely going to do blunders. Go with positive hopes, go with confidence that I can do it. It's an easy paper. Okay, I mean, don't get overconfident, but still, how I have done the other papers, I have passed other papers, I'm definitely going to rock this paper as well. Coming to the next. Okay, so 2 marks you will get. You don't even have to write this much because it's 2 points, right? So make sure that you time yourself. This is for 10 marks, right? So 10 into 1.8. Make sure that you spend 18 minutes. Okay. So if you're going to spend 18 minutes, if I divide this by 5, it would be 3.6. Oh, I could say 3. Let's round it up. 3. So spend 3 minutes. Spend 3 minutes on each point. That means 3 minutes for the 5 points. Okay. 3 or 3.5 minutes for all the 5 points. So as soon as my 3 minutes is over, I'm going to go to the next point. This is how you decide how much points you get. So in that 3 minutes, however much you can write. After that, as soon as 3 minutes get over, go to the next point. After 3 minutes get over, go to the third point. This is how you decide the time. I mean, you stay in the time. Try to give less time than which is actually required. Actually, if you divide this, it will be 3.6. But come on, who will say, right, in the time you will not say 0.6 minutes. So just keep it 3 minutes. Okay. Now, another thing is, Falun is remote. So it's like one issue you're giving from the case study and then you're building upon it. What did they told in the case study? They only told that the company is going to manage operations in a foreign country. Now you have linked this also, that this is a risk because for the first time. They just told that they're going to expand into Farland. You have built this thing also, you have added. So this is what you have to do. Take one point from the case study, extend that line with the reasons, like you are giving reasons that why it's a risk. This is how you build. Even for audit risk, any type of risk, this is how you build, write sentences, build up sentences. One point you take from the case study, build it up, extend that line with reasons in it that this is why it's a business risk. Because you are managing for the first time. Now let us go to the second thing. Okay. Farland is removed, so this may be difficult for payroll company's management team to plan regular visits. Another thing. So this is why people say audit is hard, because they just told remote, but you need to use your creative mind to think that it will be hard for the managers to go for regular visits and all. You need common sense here more than audit knowledge, right? So think how you are going to link this point, how are you going to use that as an answer. So this may be difficult for payroll company's management team to plan regular visits to the new operations. You have to make regular visits. Okay. So establishing robust management oversight and controls could be difficult. You cannot control them. You cannot have an oversight. You cannot monitor them. It will become difficult. Okay. In addition, Farland may have different laws. So they are giving all the possible answers. Okay. You don't, if you give 2 points here under international expansion, that's enough. For example, the first one you told they are going to manage foreign operation for the first time. Second one you told planning regular visit is difficult. So if you write till here, let me highlight it for you, maybe it's easier. So this is the first point, this is the second point. So if you write till here, you still will get full marks. The 2 marks you will get. You can straight away go to the second point, but make sure that it is completed in 3 minutes. Definitely, if you are having more time, if you want, you can write additional things or you can go to the next point. It's up to you. If you think this is not enough. But as soon as you write 2 points is enough, you can go to the next point. I would say don't spend time writing and writing and writing under international expansion only. Sometimes you might finish before 3 minutes also. So don't waste time. You can go to the next point and save time later on. Okay, that saved time you can use later on for something else. Next. In addition, Farland may have different laws. Exactly. Think about laws and regulations when it's a different country, right? Compared to the company's home jurisdiction. So there is a heightened risk of non-compliance. Yes. This is the third point. But we'll go through the whole answer. The reason why is because some of you might write the first 2 points. Some of your answers might not come in the first 2 points. Some of you might write this latter answers. So that's why it's important for me to go through all the possible answers. So that all the students who are watching this video, they know that, okay, this is how the answer comes. They're satisfied with all the type of answers. You should know all the type of answers. Okay, don't just stick to 2. I mean, while you're practicing, but definitely in the exam, you have to write 2 points. Okay. But while practicing, it's good that you write more than 2 points so that you can decide that, okay, this point I know more, I can talk about it more, so let me write this point. Okay. In addition, Farland, so different laws, this is the third point. Now, even the type of trees growing in the rainforest will be different. This is the fourth type, the fourth risk they are talking. Okay. And management may not have experience, they might not have experience in their harvesting, processing, and the sale of timber products. So all of these issues creates a risk that the international expansion may not be. So finally, you're summarizing all, okay? That all of these issues, whatever you have explained till here, they are risks that the international expansion may not be successful. And at the same time will represent a drain on the management's times and resources. Operations in the home country of fail may suffer as a result. Okay. So due to all those things, if international is not successful, even in your home country, the operations will suffer. Okay, so it's like overall you are giving a conclusion, the last two lines. Okay, so make sure that you give such kind of conclusion also after writing the 2 points, the last one line or 2 lines. Coming to the second one, gold standard accreditation. Same way I have done for the first one, this is also same. 2 points you write. Okay, but here we are going to have some working, some numbers I can see. There's a risk that the gold standard accreditation may not be renewed. Number one. So because it is not renewed, what will happen? You should always show the impact of that business risk. Okay, this will have an implications for reputation, and more specifically for the new contract with the Royal Company. You see how they are linking with this to the next one, the Royal Company. So wherever you can link like this, one to the other, it's a good technique. You should do it. Link it. If you see in your exhibit 3, after gold standard, the next one is contract with Royal Company. So whatever the issue here, they have linked this with the this one. You see, so this linking is very good technique. If you know this, you will secure a lot of good amount of marks for yourself. Which lastly accounts for an increase of 5.5% in the company's revenue this year. See, if you're not able to renew, it will have an impact on reputation. If it has an impact on reputation, means it will have an impact on the new contract also. Why you're talking about this new contract here? Because if you see that your company revenue increased this year, it's a 5.5% increase. So that one reason for that huge amount of increase in revenue is this new contract. That's why this new contract largely accounts for an increase of 5.5% in the company's revenue this year. How are you saying this 5.5%? Use this figure from another exhibit. You see, you're making use of different exhibits, multiple exhibits here. You're going to the next exhibit and talking about this 5.5%. The revenue increased. If you see, it increased from here to here. And if you see the Royal contract, where is it? Contract with the Royal Company. Here also they told company's revenue has increased this year, largely due to its signing a significant contract. Did you see now how they linked this with the next exhibit? And also why they have received this contract? This was signed on the basis from receiving that gold standard accreditation. Because they have received that honor, they are receiving this contract. Otherwise they would have not received. So if they cannot renew this gold standard, it will have an impact on their reputation. Hence, they might lose the contract also. If they lose the contract, revenue also will go down. Okay, so this is called linking with one exhibit to the other, one point to the other. You should do this. You should be able to link with between different exhibits. This skill, same skill, heavily used in SBL because SBL is all about exhibits. In fact, here at least it's small, the exhibits. We can quickly read and understand, but SBL is not like that. SBL is, I think, 12 pages is only you are reading information. Exhibits only. Very huge exhibits. Retaining information is very hard. Linking among the exhibits is hard. So that's why if you are able to link, you will secure good amount of marks for yourself. That means you have understood the case study properly. This is what exactly you need to see when you're writing your answers, while you are practicing. Are you able to link? Are you able to get? So several of the key performance indicators, they are now talking about this one, which need to be met to retain. Okay, remember we had to meet this. It was told there that we have to meet this in order to retain this one. Okay, but is it true? Are we meeting this? For example, there has been, but it's not in that line because there has been a decline in the percentage of timber which is harvested in line with the gold standard requirements. This also they are using from where? From exhibit 4 only, the KPIs. And the projected matrix of 82% is only just above the required level of 80%. Okay, they are linking two exhibits here. Can we go there? Oh, sorry, I'm sorry, I need to go on this side. Yeah, if you go uh, in your gold standard, they very clearly told that one condition is that at least, see, now I'm very quickly able to highlight or go to that exact location and find out where it is said. Why? Because I have done the highlight, underlining or highlighting. This is the very reason that you have to highlight, because once you highlight, you know it's there in your subconscious mind that I have read this sentence somewhere, so you're able to quickly spot that place. So now I quickly know that this is this 80% they are talking about. Okay, the condition that it is at least 80% of the timber sold must be harvested according to the strict standards. But if you go to your KPIs, the next exhibit 4, it is just 82% in 2005. It is just above 80%, but it reduced from 85 to 82. You see? So link like this when you're writing sentences. So in addition, the gold standard is linked to ethical business. This is also in addition. This is also linked to what? Ethical business practice. And there are some indications that the company's business ethics are questionable. So what are those indications? Give examples when you're saying that there are some indications. Don't just say some indications are questionable and full stop and that's it. You always have to show them with proof, with examples, if you have made some statement that this is questionable, this is fair. So for example, the legal case being bought by employees, you see, if they were ethical, then why are employees bringing legal case against them? So they bought legal case, and the incentive payment also they have paid to the government official. So this shows that how how much they're ethical. Are they 100% ethical? Because of their actions. So if the gold standard accreditation is lost, this is you are giving the impact. Okay, impact of that business risk. The last line always should show, you should write about the impact of that risk on the company. So if the accreditation is lost, royal company and other customers may cancel contract, because this is based on that gold standard only. If that is lost, they might lose this also as well. So what happens? Resulting in the loss of revenue and cash flow. Revenue will be lost because most of the revenues from that contract, if that contract is not there, how will you get the revenue? Cash flow also, you will lose cash flow also. Okay, coming to the third point, legal case. The legal action caused by the company by its own employee, this is a very significant risk. The biggest risk is this only, because it looks, when the people from the outside comes to know that their own employees are only taking legal action, it shows that the company is not a ethical company anymore, right? If the issue becomes public knowledge, the reputation problem. And also write about the amount. Whenever they write some figure, they give you some figure, make use of that figure in your answer. So this is the amount that has been claimed, 19 million. It's not a small amount. Okay. And this exits the company's cash balance also. This 19 million claim. How are they saying exits the cash balance? You see, you have to see the cash balance for it. They have given the cash balance, I think, yes, in exhibit 3 only. I've told you, minutes of meeting are very important. Most of the information facts you will get from that only, compared to other exhibits, and also your KPIs. Other exhibits, not so much right now, okay, for the first requirement. Sorry, your cash is, you see, cash is here. 4.5 million only. It's just 4.5 million. Okay. And they also told that demand for higher wages has been met. So that reduces your cash also. Okay. If the legal claim were to go against the company, it will struggle to find the funds to pay the damages. Yes, if the case goes against them. So whenever you're talking about legal case, make sure you talk about that. When the claim goes against the company, what would be the damage? Okay. Here they will struggle because cash is 4.5 only and they have to pay 19. Where are they going to pay the extra amount? From where they're going to take it? So all these things you need to write in your answer. Okay. They will struggle to find the funds. Given that it is already at the limit of its borrowing arrangements, this is they're taking from another exhibit, from their exhibit 1, if I'm not mistaken. No, it's not it's exhibit 2, background information. Okay, no, it's not. Just you see, I forgot now where I wrote. So I'm struggling now. But definitely it will be in the beginning. Okay. Because they have told that I see, I remember the thing, but this is the reason I didn't highlight it, so I'm not able to spot it now. This will happen to you as well if you don't highlight it. So now what am I going to do? I'm going through it over again to see where that thing is, the word is there. I got it. Yes. At the limit of bank borrowing, they are the limit of bank borrowing agreement. So highlight your words, the important ones from the exhibits. The situation could also indicate poor governance of the company. Of the company. If the decisions are being made which put the lives of the employees at risk and results in days lost due to accidents at work, we clearly saw that there are some days which are lost due to accidents. Okay, and the matter seems to be dismissed as unimportant by the management team and legal advisors. So you can talk about corporate issues also, the corporate governance. Okay, if you are having a poor governance in your company, for example, the management does not take it very important, they take it very lightly, the health of the employees. Okay, that the days are lost due to the accidents at work, they don't think it's important. So this also could, if they have such poor governance, this also could be an issue, that why the employees are going against the company, legal case. Next, damage to assets caused by the storm. The reason storms have caused significant damage to the company's timber plantation asset, right? Unpredictable weather patterns could cause further harm. If the weather conditions changes, which is not in your favor, it can harm you. Or it could totally destroy the company's timber plantations. But we are assuming that the trees will be replanted to replace the damage caused by the storm. It may take many years for the trees to grow to a harvestable size. Even if we are replacing it, it will take many years. So what happens? The company faces a significant depletion in its future cash inflows for years to come. This is a risk. Okay. And also this risk is very difficult to mitigate also because it is impacting in the long term. Perhaps the diversification into tropical rainforest is a way to reduce the risk exposure of the company's operations being concentrated in one geographical area. So they are linking this to what? That if you diversify into tropical rainforest, you can reduce the risk rather than relying on one. You're now spreading your risk. Okay, because now you are just on one geographical area. If you go to other areas, you are diversifying your risk. So in that way, you can reduce the risk exposure. Coming to liquidity, the financial, so liquidity and all, you can use numbers. Okay, through numbers you can say their liquidity position. The company's the financial information provided indicates. So make sure that when you're writing, rather than saying that liquidity improved or declined, make sure that you are writing the reference source from where you are saying this. You are saying this from the financial information that is provided to you, right? So this indicates that the company's liquidity position has deteriorated over the year. How? Company's cash went down to 4.5 million. Okay, and which is a reduction of 33.8% compared to the end of the last financial year. If you see the cash again in Exhibit 3, if you see here, okay, from 6.8 it went down to 4.5. Here they didn't calculate the ratios, how much it has declined, but it's always good that you calculate that change, that percentage change. So that means you have to do a calculation here. You see, so audit is not always numbers. You have to do a small amount of calculations you need to do. So if you have to do this, it will be 6.8 minus 4.5 divided by 6.8. Let me check that as well. Which is a 33.8%. Yes, it's a 33.8% decline. So this is how you are checking the percentage, right? You can use your calculator for that. You have that calculator on your screen. %33.8%. Okay. So while this has been an because it's a huge increase, it's not a small amount of increase. Okay, to show that, it's better to calculate ratios. While this has been explained as due to inflationary pressure, they told that due to inflationary pressure, and the other one is because employees are demanding higher wages. Okay, that's why their cash fell down. Okay, so management should be doing more to maintain a reasonable level of cash in order to properly manage its working capital. Inventory levels. Now you're talking about inventory levels, because when you're talking about liquidity, you have to talk about all this: cash, inventory level. Okay, this has increased by 67.4%. They didn't show the increase, but same way you have to calculate how you have calculated for cash. So, and while again the reason for the increase has been explained by the management. So if the reason has been explained clearly, you also write in your answer that the reason has been explained by the management. So if the inventory of the processed timber cannot be shipped to customers in the near future, if you cannot do this, ship to the customer, working capital will continue to deteriorate, because they told why that inventory increased. Okay, because no containers of processed timber could ship to export customers. So if this continues to happen, okay, your inventory will keep on increasing and it will affect your working capital. That means your liquidity will suffer, because so far you have lost 2.1 million. Okay, and also this is they have said that this is ongoing industrial action. So that means they are not going to stop this industrial action. That means it's going to affect your liquidity until the industrial action stops once and forever. The company may become unable to meet obligations as they fall due, especially if the industrial action continues to restrict the possibility of export sales, which accounts for 30% of the company's revenue. Okay. So in this case, if their liquidity is suffering, remember they have taken a bank loan. Okay, so they have to pay it. So they will be unable to meet the obligations. They cannot pay the bank the loan and the interest if this continues happening, because their cash is also declining, inventory is increasing. Okay, because if you see the export sales, which accounts for 30% of the company's revenue, what is the amount of the sale that they have lost? 2.1. And what is the revenue? You have to go to exhibit 4. 42.5. 42.5. So let me check out with my calculator. 2.1 divided by 42.5. No, this is not the way, but it is 30%. Okay, you have to calculate. It's better that you calculate ratios. I will not say that. You might ask me these questions: when do we know that we have to calculate in percentage and all? I would say that wherever you can use, for example, when you have to show that it has declined or it has increased by some, it's better to show it in terms of percentage rather than saying it has increased from this amount to that amount, it has fallen from this amount to that amount. Okay, because through percentages you can see how big or small the change is. Next is industrial action. The industrial action at the country's board has already meant lost sales, right? Because of that industrial action, already we have lost 2.1 million. They have clearly told. And as explained above, there's a risk that revenue and cash inflows will be negatively impacted. Because of that industrial action, you are not going to receive cash inflows because you are not going to sell to your customer. So how are you going to receive that cash inflows? So export sales account for 30% of the total revenue, approximately 12.75 million, making this potentially a very significant issue. You see, through percentages you can show how significant it is, because 12.75 million is a very significant amount should the industrial action continue. So customers may begin to look elsewhere for their supply of timber. Remember, you are giving the risk, you are evaluating this. What are the negative side of this industrial action? So customers can look for alternative. What happens? What is the impact that it will have on you, leading to cancel future orders and contracts? Make sure that you always show the impact on you, your company. Okay. There is also an issue that the increased shortage of timber, which is awaiting export to foreign customers, will incur additional storage cost. When your inventory went up, okay, that means storage cost also will increase. You have so much of inventories to store, so your storage cost will go up because you are waiting that stocks to be sold to foreign customers. You will be exporting it to foreign customers, but you have not yet. It is still there in your inventory, your warehouse. Okay. Incentive payment. Incentive payment is the last business risk. After that, we will be moving towards the audit risk. The fact that the payment is being reported in the media indicates that there is something unusual about the payment. So you have to talk about how do you understand which one you have to write first and which one you have to write last. It's very simple. Whichever is very significant, you think is very, very significant, you need to write that first. Whatever is less important, write it later. So very important first, then a little not so important second, and then not so important third, and then it goes on like that. Okay. So the fact that it has been reported in the media, this is very important. So make sure that you write this as your first point in the first line. Okay. The payment indicate that there is something unusual about this payment. Otherwise, they will not report this to the media. And in fact, the incentive payment could be a bribe. So this is a reputational risk to the company. Why? And this is very high. Why? If it was some small company, okay, but not for this company. Because especially given that it should be adhering to a high standard of business ethics. They have been given this gold standard, right? So it is expected from them that they will comply with high standards of business ethics. Customers may not wish to associate themselves with a supplier who engages with unethical and possibly illegal payment. All the drawbacks of that risk you have to give. Okay. because the question says evaluate business risk. Evaluate means you are giving pros and cons, mostly cons only, right? Also, the company could face legal action if the payment is a bribe. Okay, and aside from this, the reputational risk, it has a very little cash available to pay any fine or penalty imposed. Remember, reputational risk is there. Apart from that, you have a very little cash. In case if you have some fine, if they impose a fine and all for taking giving bribes and all, you cannot pay that because very little cash. You see, you are linking from various exhibits. If the incentive payment is proven to be a bribe, there could be implications for the government grant also. Again, you are linking this to where? Government grant, which contains stipulations regarding, because government grant is given to you based on that gold standard that you have got. Okay, that means you have got that because you are following ethical business practice. But if you are taking a bribe now, the government also will not give you the grant. So in the worst case, the grant may need to be repaid. You might have to repay the grant to the government back if you are not complying with the terms and conditions. Okay. This issue is further discussed in part D to this briefing notes in terms of how it impacts on our role as an auditor, the incentive payment. Why? Because ethical issue, right? So make sure that you write this. When you're writing it, when you're using one answer more than one place, for example, incentive payment, this you might have to write for ethical issues also later on. So you can just write one sentence like this very briefly. Okay, that this issue will be discussed further in part D. And it comes everything, all this comes under briefing note only. Okay, part A, B, and all. They are not separate. Now let us read the tutorial note. Okay, this is not in your answer. You don't have to write this. Just we'll see. Credit will be awarded for the discussion of other relevant business risk also. For example, solvency. So they have given some risk. Solvency issue raised by the company being at the limit of its borrowing agreement. That means the company is now solvent because they are the limit of its borrowing agreement. So for this also you will get marks. Lack of cash other than relation to the government grant. So this is another risk. Other than that government grant, you don't have lack cash from anywhere because you are going to establish operations in the foreign country. So you need cash. Also lack of audit committee. This is another risk. Okay, this is they are relating to the business risk. Okay, this could be a business risk also. An independent internal audit team. So the reputational damage which may be caused by the legal case and incentive payment and the inflationary pressure which will make costs hard to control. So this risk you can write. You will be given marks for it. But most of it, some of it we have covered already in the answer. For example, reputational damage because of legal case and incentive payment, these things we have covered. So coming to the next one, part B. Part B also writes heading like this: evaluation of audit risk, and straight away write the points and use different subheadings for each point. Okay, under that also you can write different paragraphs. Okay, for one point you can write that one point in different paragraphs also, not necessarily that only one paragraph only you will write like this. You have used two paragraphs to write this. Okay, so the first one is new client. This is an audit risk. So if you see the length of the answer B, this will be definitely, it will be bigger than your A because it's worth 20 marks. Okay, so let us read under new client. This is the first year in which chief and company has audited the company, which increases detection risk. As a firm does not have experience, so when you are referring, you should always say as a firm. Okay, because you are an auditing manager. As a firm does not have experience with the client, making it more difficult to detect the material misstatements. Because when you have an experience with a client, it's easier to detect material misstatements. But if you don't have an experience, it becomes more difficult. So it's very common that this is one of the first audit risk. It's easy to write. Some risk is very easy to identify also. For example, new client, corporate governance and all. But for the others, you need to think a bit. Number two, in addition, there is a risk that opening balances and comparative information may not be correct. The prior year figures were not audited. Why they will not be correct? You always have to give the reason. If you are saying it's correct or it's not correct. Because the prior year figures were not audited by chief and company. They were audited by another accountant. Sorry, another auditor. Therefore, we should plan. We should, okay? You should always write as a we. We should plan to audit the opening balances carefully in accordance with IS 510. You should make this use of the standard. Which standard are you going to use? IS 510, which is known as initial audit engagements. Okay, the opening balances. To ensure that opening balances and comparative information are both free from material misstatement. First, you have to check them and then you have to audit the rest, which is this year. Because opening balances and comparative information comes from the previous year, and previous year you are not the auditor, right? Chief and company. Next, corporate governance. But before corporate governance, let us read the tutorial on what is given under new client. Credit will also be awarded for discussion of failed company operating in a specialized industry. Isn't it a specialized industry? It is. Timber plantation. So because of that, which could create a detection risk given that the audit firms lacks of experience in auditing clients in this industry. Because they have, in the case study, they told that this is the first client they are auditing in such a field, which is timber plantation. So because of this also, it's a risk. It can give risk to, it's a detection risk. It increases the detection risk. So this also you can write in your answer. You'll be given marks. Corporate governance, the second type of audit risk, because they don't have an audit committee. So the company does not have to comply with corporate governance requirement as it is not a listed entity, right? If it's not listed, they don't have to comply. But however, it is a good practice to have established audit committee, even though you're not required, especially for a large company like Bale Company. And it is also important that they have audit committee. Why? Because in 2 years' time, they are going to seek stock exchange listing. The internal audit team is small. Only two people are there. And it is also lacking in independence, because if audit committee is not there, they'll be lacking in independence. Okay, because they could report to CFO. They directly report to CFO, but they should be reporting to audit committee. But here they are not reporting it to the audit committee, so that means they are lacking independence. What does this mean? This means that the scope of their work is likely to be quite limited due to the insufficient resources. And any recommendations made could potentially be ignored by Mark York. So if you are making any recommendations, the internal audit team, because there are only two, it will be more probably be ignored by the CFO, Mark York. So this has implications for controls over financial reporting, which could be deficient, and increases control risk. Now you're talking about the internal control and all, because this also comes under the corporate governance only. Okay, because 2 marks for each audit risk. So make sure that you write 2 points. First point, you were talking about the audit committee and all. Independence is not there and all. Second, you're talking about the control. Okay, so because if the control is deficient, it will increase the control risk. Okay, and there is very high scope for errors in the financial reporting process and for deliberate manipulation of balances and transactions. Why? As the internal audit team does not have sufficient resources for thorough monitoring and reporting. When you don't have enough resources to monitor and report well, there are very high chances that the accounts, the balances, transactions can be manipulated. So you need to write them in your answer. Pressure on results. Third. Okay. Number one, it is not a listed entity. So what happens if it's not a listed entity? We'll see. The company is not a listed entity, but the existing and the new shareholders will be looking for return on the investment in the form of dividend payment, isn't it? So in addition, in the run up to a potential stock market flotation, there will be a pressure for the company. If you want to float your shares in the market, there will be a pressure for the company to show good financial performance. So the company also has ambitious international expansion plans. Also, they are planning to expand internationally. So because of this, there is a pressure to return better performance, which creates an incentive for the management buyers. That means management will always try to show that they are good. Their financial condition is good, even though it's not, because they are buyers now. Because there's a pressure that they have to show better results, which means that the management may use earnings management techniques or other methods of creative accounting. Why? To create a healthier picture of the financial performance. Then is actually the case. So because of this, what happens? You have to always talk in terms of audit risk. Remember, audit risk means inherent risk, control risk, detection risk, all this risk. You have to link this. Earlier, if you see this control, you linked it to the control risk. Then the first point, you linked it to the detection risk. So these are types of audit risks, okay? Detection risk, control risk, inherent risk. So make sure that you bring your answer and link it to the type of risk, because the topic is audit risk. So here, this creates an inherent risk. Make sure that you write these words, it's very important. This creates an inherent risk of material misstatement at the financial statement level. Inherent risk means something which is, even though after you have done all the controls is done, all the activities have been taken place, still there will be some risk left. That is known as inherent risk. It is there. You cannot eliminate it completely. Okay. So the fact that the projected before tax is 30% higher than the previous year's figure. The fact that the projected profit before tax is 30% higher than the previous year. You see, could indicate that operating expenses are understated there. Probably, right? Because to increase the profit, you have to understate expense and increase the revenue. That's what they must have done. So management bias could also have led to some of the accounting treatments suggested by Mark York, which worked to improve the company's profit for the year. Okay. So let us see that 30%, that figure, how they got that 30% figure. If you see here, profit before tax, you see 30% increase. And it's a big increase. Now we are coming to the government grants. Mention the amount. Okay, so the government grant of 20 million has been awarded to PEL. Okay, if you are checking in terms of percentage, this amounts to 3.6% of the total asset, and is material also, and it is material to the projected statement of financial position. Mark York has suggested that he will recognize 10 million, because remember they told half they will recognize this year to record for the expense, because expenses they have recognized this year, so they want to record the income also this year. So 10 million they will recognize of the amount received in profit for the year. Okay, so projected profit before tax is only 6.5 million. So increasing the profit by this amount would be highly material. So if you increase this by further 10, it will become 16.5. It becomes very material, right? So increasing the profit by this amount, that means by 10, it will be highly material. Please mention the word highly material. Use adjectives to show that is very material. Highly material to the statement of profit and loss, because it's a profit, right? So it will go in the profit and loss. Make sure where it is going, whether it is material for the statement of financial position or statement of profit or loss. So you have to write it. But this is explained further, if you see, right? Because for government grant, it's for 4 points. So they're explaining in detail. The audit risk relates to whether they should be recognized as an income in the current accounting period. That's what the audit risk relates to. So which standard are you using for government grant? IS 20 in SBR. Okay, IS 20. So you have to make sure that you use that standard. you have to say that according to this standard, how you actually have to recognize the income and the expenses. So IS 20 requires that government grants are recognized in profit and loss on a systematic basis over the period in which the entity recognizes expenses for the related costs for which the grants are intended to compensate. Systematic basis, okay? So Mark York is planning to recognize half of the. Now you're linking this to the case study again. You're bringing this to the case study and saying what is actually doing, what they are doing in the case study. So they are planning to recognize half of the grant as income this year. Now you have to say whether this is justified or not. However, this is not justified. This is not appropriately justified. You have to write it. First you are writing the IS 20 rules, then you are saying what the company is doing, then you are saying it is not appropriately justified. The grant has not been awarded to compensate for management time in planning the international expansion. So the appropriate accounting treatment, okay, would seem to be that entire amount of the grant should be recognized as deferred income. Okay, what is the appropriate accounting treatment? The entire amount of the grant should be recognized as a deferred income in this financial year, as expenditure is for which the grant is specially provided has not yet been incurred also. Okay. Therefore, there's a risk that the company will recognize income too. So this is a risk that income they will recognize too early. What happens because of that? Overstated profit and understated liabilities. Because it should have been recognized as a deferred income, that means liability. But you are not recognizing it as a deferred income, means liabilities understated, profits overstated. Because they are recognizing income too early. It's a risk. Okay. Now, credit will also be awarded for discussion related to the company's use of the grant for building accommodation for employees and the relevant audit risk, the recognition of the accommodation as property, planning, equipment, and treatment of the part of the grant various and construction of the assets. Okay. Now, this is further explained. Okay, the government grant is still not yet over. There could be further issue. Okay, so each issue you are writing a separate paragraph like this. This is a different issue you are talking about relating to government grant. That the terms of the grant may require complete or partial repayment if the conditions of the grant are not satisfied. For example, if PAIL does not retain its gold standard accreditation, or if the circumstances of the employee's legal case are considered to be indicative of the unethical business practice by the company. Right? If it is proven that the business is unethical because of the legal cases from the employees, okay, what happens? They might have to pay partially or completely for the grant. So this is also it's a risk relating to the government grant. The company should, so the same point only they are explaining in this paragraph. Okay, the company should evaluate whether the terms are likely to be met. You have to see this, and if not, should consider whether it would be appropriate to recognize a provision or disclose a contingent liability in its notes to the financial statements. Because contingent liability we do not recognize, we write notes, we disclose it as a note. But provision, yes, provision we recognize it. So you have to see whether it is appropriate to recognize a provision or disclose it as a contingent liability, that grant. And provision, how do we recognize according to which standard? IS 37. So according to IS 37, make sure whenever you are writing a word like this, for example, recognize a provision or recognize an asset, make sure that you are using the specific standard there in the answer. So according to IS 37, how a provision should be recognized? A provision should be recognized where there's a present obligation exists as the result of the past event, which can be reliably measured and is probable to result in a lot of economic benefit. Basically, you are giving a definition under which a provision can be recognized. So the risk is therefore that this has not been considered by management. You are giving an overall conclusion for the government grant. This risk was not considered by the management. So because it is not considered by the management, leading possibility to understate liabilities or inadequate disclosure as required by IS 37. You're not disclosing it also, and liabilities are also understated. Now we are going to the legal case. Okay. Legal case could also give rise to risk of understated liability. Because if you're not recognizing that legal case, that means your liability is understated. So it's a risk, or also inadequate disclosure. If the company fails to provide for the 19 million claimed by employees or to disclose a matter as a contingent liability. Okay. So all these are risk, okay? Because if there's a claim against the company that they have to pay 19 billion, all these things has to be disclosed, but there's a risk that they will not be disclosed. Okay. It will be a matter of significant judgment to decide whether the legal claim is likely to go against bail or not at this early stage. However, the matter is material. If you see, why? Because it is at 3.5% of the total asset and being close to 3 times projected profit for the year. Therefore, warrants careful consideration. Okay, so due to this sensitive nature, the auditor may also consider the issue to be material by nature. Coming to the next one, audit risk. So we have 1, 2, 3. We have 3 more before we go to part C. Okay, which is reduction in fair value of the timber plantation. So now we are saying what's happening. The company's timber plantation asset, before we recognize any change in fair value, okay, is projected to amount to 90.9% of the company's total assets and is therefore highly material. 90.9. See, this is the use of the percentage. Make sure that you find the percentage of it. What is it out of the total asset? Because this is a timber plantation asset. It's an asset. So out of the total asset, how much is timber plantation? To know that, we have to go back again here. So if you see, the total asset is 550. Okay. But where is the timber will be? Okay. Timber plantation is 500. So out of 550, 500 is timber plantation. You're finding in terms of percentage, which will be 90 point something, right? And which is highly significant, highly. So that's because if you are just taking 500, you will not be able to know whether it is material or not. Isn't it? Looking at the amount, you cannot say. But when you are taking in terms of percentage, you can easily say. .9%. Or you can round it up also. You can use rounded figure 91%. Now you're going to say what is the impact of this reduction in fair value. So the company has correctly obtained an expert's opinion. Okay. What is that opinion on the change in the fair value of the destroyed and the damage tree caused by the storm? That they have done it. And the expert's valuation has helped management to determine that the reduction in fair value of this one should be recognized in the financial statements within profit. Right? The expert has also told the management that this reduction has to be recognized in profit and loss, which is correct, which has helped the management. Okay, and this amount is material in its own right at 14.1% of the timber plantation asset. And being more than 10 times the projected profit. Okay, and being more than 10 times the projected profit. Okay, when the loss in value is recognized, it will turn the project profit into a significant loss. You see, when you're recognizing that loss, it will turn the profit into significant loss. There's a risk that the management will not recognize the loss in full. What is that risk? That management will not recognize the loss in full. Who was to show their profit as a significant loss? Right? Especially when they are about to go public in 2 years' time. and also they are trying to expand internationally. So recognize the loss and will due to the impact it will have on the profit. This is therefore a very significant issue for the audit planning. Auditors have to look for this. Next, there's a risk that the expert's valuation is not appropriate. This could be a risk, okay? So if in your answer while you're practicing, guys, if you're able to pinpoint these points also at least, that this is not, this could be a risk, this could be a risk, that means you're going in the right track. You only need to build up and make it in a form of sentence and write it. Okay, that I think you will be able to do it, because once you know, hardest part in audit is, trust me, to find out those risks, to identify the risk appropriately. Once you identify the risk, writing sentences, making in paragraphs is nothing, guys. So make sure that you appropriately identify the risks in the case study from all the past papers when you're going through. Okay, this is just a demo I'm showing through one question paper, so make sure that you go through the other papers on your own and follow the techniques which I'm telling you through this question. For example, if the expert does not have appropriate expertise, okay, to perform this specialized valuation, which would lead to issues in whether the valuation can be relied upon. See, they didn't say in the case study that the expert is they have the expertise or not, but you're talking about risk. When you're talking about risk, you are saying from both the sides. What if they don't have the expertise? So it's like what if scenario you're using here. What if they rely on this? What if they lack this? So you're answering in this way only. Most of your audit answers are like this, especially when you're talking in terms of risk. Okay, so exactly this is the way. If the expert does not have, okay, because this is a very specialized area, that timber plantation and all is IS 41. So not everyone is will have expertise to value such things. They have to be highly experienced. Okay, so which will lead to issue in whether valuation can be relied upon, because remember, auditors have to rely up to some extent to the valuation that they have got from the expertise. So if the experts are wrong in their measurement, then audit will go wrong. That's why this is there as an audit risk when you're planning the audit. So in addition, the expert has considered only the value of the destroyed and the damaged trees, and they did not consider any other impact of the storm. For example, so now they are showing you through examples. You need to show through examples. Where you are not able to show through facts or from points, show through an example. How they then show the impact of the storm on the other impact? If the other assets such as roads and buildings have been affected by the storm and should be tested for impairment. They didn't write this, right? They didn't value this. Therefore, based on the issues discussed above, there's a risk that the loss is not fully recognized in profit for the year and the carrying amount on the not current asset is overstated. Okay, you're showing higher asset. Inventory. So basically, when you see the word inventory, it becomes a bit hard. You might be thinking how to link this to the audit risk. That's the skill that you need to adopt. When you see, you have to be able to identify, you have to be able to link this to an audit risk. Okay. So you start by that increase in the inventory. Okay, it is because it has increased significantly by this percentage, and the value of the inventory at this one has represents 2.8% of the projected total assets. Okay, so if you see next line, when you're talking about audit risk, make sure that you always say material or not material. So this is also material to the financial statements. Okay, and there's a risk that if the industrial action continues, company cannot fulfill its export sale contracts. That means they'll be having huge amount of inventory and they will not be able to sell that to the customers. Okay, if the industrial action continues and the customers will cancel their order. You see there you are linking so many things to that inventory. The industrial action you are linking to the inventory, because if industrial action continues, you cannot sell it, orders will be cancelled, hence your inventory will keep increasing. So the inventory then may not be saleable to other customers. Perhaps if the timber has been cut to customer specification or requires modification to secure or sell to a different customer. Okay. So what happens if you're not able to sell that inventory to other customers? You might sometimes have to cut that timber to suit a specific customer. Okay, so that you can sell that to a different customer. All this are risk. So because it's inventory, make sure that you relate IS2 here. You need to bring this standard here. So according to IS2, how are you measuring inventory? Inventory should be recognized at the lower of cost and as well value. We all know this. But how are we going to link to the audit risk? And there is an audit risk that inventory is overstated. This is an audit risk. If an item is understated, profit and loss account item is understated or overstated, or balance sheet item is overstated or understated, this is an audit risk. This is how you link to the audit risk. So inventory comes in the statement of financial position. If it is understated or overstated, it is an audit risk, you see. So from here you bring it to the audit risk. Okay, and there is an audit risk that inventory is overstated, because inventory is an asset, so they want to show high assets, so they will increase that. So they will overstate it. And if any necessary write down to net realizable value is not recognized. So the inventory is overstated if any necessary write down to net realizable value is not recognized. Okay, so what would this do? This would overstate the current assets and overstate the profit also. Okay, going to the going concern. Biggest audit risk is going concern only. Okay, if you're talking about going concern, make sure that you talk about indications that says that okay, there are some issues with going concern, so that you can answer this. For example, there are several indicators that despite its projected increase in revenue and profit, even though profit and revenue are increasing, still there are indicators that says that the company is facing some going concern issue. Okay, what are those indicators? Include the indicators. You can write 2-3 indicators. Okay, one is operational problems. Why? Because destroyed timber plantation and industrial action. Next, reputational damage caused by legal claim by the employees, and also illegal payment. So all these are issues of going concern. And finally, financial problems caused by lack of cash. Because if you are having a fine, if they pay a fine for illegal payment, you cannot pay in cash because you don't have the cash. If you have to expand also, you don't have cash. You are already dependent on the government grant. That grant also you might not receive if you are proven unethical. Okay, and the fact that its results are likely to be much worse than projected by management when the decrease in the fair value of the destroyed timber machine is taken into account. So when you're taking that 70.5 million decrease in the fair value, your situations might be worse than what is told by the management. So all these things are indicators of going concern. Okay, IS1. Okay, because IS1 talks about going concern, so this is the most appropriate standard to use here. What does IS1 says? They require that management provides a note to the financial statements which discusses any material uncertainty, okay, over the company's ability to continue as a going concern. If the management, so this, for this part you need the knowledge of SBR. Okay, and to link it with audit risk and all, you need the knowledge of audit. But trust me, having the full knowledge of your SBR knowledge and your audit is a different thing, and able to link your answers, make up sentences and write in paragraphs is a different skill. You need to have both the skills. These are your exam skills, writing skills that you need to develop. The other one is your technical skills, that is having knowledge of audit and SBR. You need to have both the skills to pass this paper. What most of the students assume that if you know everything about audit, all the knowledge SBR, you will pass this paper. It's not like that. It's how well you write and how well you link with one to the other. Okay, You should quickly be able to identify, okay, this is the place I have to use this standard. According to this standard, this will be measured like this, and what the company is doing. You have to be very quick to identify these issues in audit, basically. So if the management fails to disclose this note, what happens? It provides or provides a note with not so much of detail. Then the requirement of IS-1 may not have been followed, creating a significant audit risk. That means you're not complying with IS-1. You're not complying with the accounting standard. Okay, this is a significant audit risk. So that's it for part A and B. Now let us go to part C. Part C is for 6 marks. Okay. So if you see the answers also, there are so many points, but you just have to write 6 points. Any 6 points will give you 6 marks. So changes in the fair value of the timber plantation asset. Okay. Let us go to part C, requirement again. It's always a good idea that you keep on revisiting your requirements, because you will forget otherwise. Okay. Design the audit procedure and caused by recent storms. Next, it should also relate to the evaluation of the expert appointed by the management and the work they have performed. That means you have to evaluate the expert also. That also your answer should include, okay? For those, when you're including it, total only you will get 6 marks. You will not get additional marks for including it. Together you will be getting 6 marks. So they are giving the answers in bullet points like this, if you see. Let us see. So obtain the expert's report. Okay, obtain. Because these are audit procedures. You're designing an audit procedure. So you obtain the expert's report. On what? On the value of the destroyed as well as the damaged timber plantation. Why are you obtaining this? For this 3 purposes. To gain understanding and allow evaluation of the methodology and the assumptions used. Make sure you write exact words like this. Evaluation of the methodology, assumptions, example. Wherever you can use examples, always use examples, okay? Basis of determining the amount of any income which may be generated from the timber. Because this is a specialized area, so you should have an understanding of how do you determine income in this kind of asset. Okay. To be salvaged from the damaged tree, because some trees are damaging. So how do you recognize income? You need to have an understanding for this, because when you know that some trees are damaged, number 1. Number 2, so you see these are very specific to this case study only. Next question you cannot apply this, because your next scenario, next question will be totally different. That's why every question you have to do in the AAA, because every question is very unique. The answers are very unique. You need to think for this. These things you will not even get from your textbook also. Going through all the audit procedure. Audit procedure says, okay, confirm this, do this, obtain this, document this. But they are general answers. You need to bring those general answers to this case study and link it like this. Determine income from this because there are damaged trees. You see? Next, confirm the geographical extent of the damage by the storm. That storm has damaged, but up to how much? What is that geographical extent that they have damaged the trees? That you have to confirm. Next, confirm the basis of determining whether trees have been completely destroyed or damaged. What is the basis that says that, okay, trees have been completely damaged or not? What is that basis? You have to confirm. That's why you need the expert report. Next, so for this you will be given 1 mark. Number 2, discuss the expert's methodology. Discuss is the word. Okay, and the assumptions with management. You are discussing this with whom? The methodology and the assumptions. With the management. Why? To confirm their reasons, rational, and compliance with the IS 41. Okay. So this is also a kind of audit procedure. You are now confirming with the management. To confirm that whether it is justified that they are complying with IS 41 or not. Third, obtain confirmation. Confirmation of what? Of the expert's qualification and experience. You just cannot rely on any expert like that. If an expert is saying, okay, this is the value, you should first ask them what is their qualification and experience that they are saying. Do they have the experience in the timber plantation asset? Do they have the qualifications? You have to confirm that they are qualified enough and they have the experience. In assessing storm damage, you have to exactly say it is in assessing for what? For storm damage to timber plantation assets and quantifying the financial loss. Number 4, obtain the confirmation. Again, confirmation. It can be same, obtain confirmation. But the things is different. Obtain confirmation for what? The reasons are different. That the expert is independent from pale company and his management team also. Number 5, if possible, visit the site of the storm damage to form a view of the scale of the destruction and to evaluate whether any assets other than the trees have been destroyed or damaged. These are very practical answers. You have to think very practically when you're giving audit procedures when you have to design, because this could be a little bit tough to think. Because students, I know they are most likely to, if they know something from the textbook and they can apply to the scenario, they are very happy. But areas where they need to be creative, they have to think too much, especially when relating to a specific case study like this. Relating to timber plantation, it becomes a bit difficult. So that's why you have to focus more on audit procedures also. This is also an area where students have to focus more on if you want to score good marks. 6. So if you write the first 6 points, let's say first 6 points, you will get the marks. You don't have to write the others, but we'll go through the others also, just in case other students might be writing the below points. So discuss with the management the actions which have been taken in response to the storm, the extent of the progress made to clear the destroyed trees and harvest the damaged trees. You have to check this with the management. So let us go through these points, okay? These are additional points they are giving. Obtain any documentation related to potential sale of the damaged trees. For example, custom orders, okay? Or to confirm in a reliable value of damaged trees. From the non-current asset register, confirm the carrying amount of the standing tree. Because at least the amount of the standing tree you will get it from the non-current asset register, right? So from there you can confirm. You see, you have to make sure that you know exact resource or exact source from where to confirm a value. So from non-current asset register, confirm the carrying amount of the standing tree before any change in the fair value being recognized. Then only you will know that after the storm has happened, how much the fair value changed. Okay, consider whether the use of an external expert is necessary also. Auditor's expert is necessary to provide sufficient and appropriate evidence given the materiality of the figure. Okay, when you're talking about evidence, make sure you write sufficient and appropriate evidence. Okay, develop an auditor's estimate of the fair value of the timber plantation. Auditor can do that. They can estimate that this will be the fair value in accordance with IS 41. And then compare this with the management's estimate of the change in fair value. Auditors calculating one figure, estimating one figure. Managers are estimating one figure. Now they are comparing against with each other. If they are very much close to each other, then it's more likely to be not 100% accurate, but then there are auditors usually will take that figure because they are very much close in line. But if the differences is too much, then they will go in more depth. They will go in more depth why there is such a huge difference. Obtain a copy of the company's insurance policy because it's a storm. When an external event has affected our asset, we talk about insurance policy. So we obtain a copy of the company's insurance policy and review their terms and conditions to confirm whether the storm damage is covered by the insurance or not. This is why if you're talking about company's insurance policy, okay, if the asset is something else, some other asset, for example, a very low amount of asset, the damage is also not so much, then talking about insurance policy does not make sense there. So that's why I told you every audit procedure is very specific to the case study that you are getting. Okay. Next, we are moving towards the ethical issue. Right? So when we are talking about ethical issues, let us go again through the requirements. Because by now you must have forgot what the actual requirement was. Even I forgot what the actual requirement is. So keep revisiting your requirements. There is no harm in it. Using Exhibit 5, we have to use Exhibit 5 relating to the phone call. Okay. So I remembered somewhat because I've underlined something. Let me see how much you have remembered or not. So let us go through the ethical issue. Okay. They are talking about assurance on the key performance indicator. Number 1. Use subheadings like this when you're giving different ethical issues and all. Okay. Next is incentive payment. It's for 10 marks. Okay. And then finally the conclusion. Don't forget this conclusion. This has to be there because you are writing a briefing paper, and that briefing paper includes all part A, B, C, D. After writing A, B, C, D, conclusion has to be, because you started with introduction, so don't forget the conclusion. Okay, but we'll come to the conclusion after we finish the ethical issues relating to these two things. One is incentive payment, one is assurance on key performance indicators. So 5 marks for this, 5 marks for that one. Incentive payment. Okay, so 5 points you can write in 5 different paragraphs also. Now, there are several issues to consider with regard to providing this service. What are those issues? A significant issue relates to auditor objectivity, because we are talking about ethical issues. So make sure that you link with objectivity, integrity, confidentiality, professional competence, and due care, professional behavior. These 5 ethics. Okay. So this relates to auditors. Out of 5, which one? Objectivity. Objectivity. How? The KPIs include both financial and non-financial metrics, right? The financial metrics includes revenue, operating profit, and profit before tax. And this will be extracted from or reconciled to the figure to be shown in the audited financial statements. While the KPIs okay. So once we talked about audit objectivity, remember, auditors do auditing of what? Financial statements. And in financial statements, we have what kind of information? Financial information. That's why we are talking about KPIs, including both financial and non-financial metrics. So you see, from there you get, what is the next line? Next line should be that it includes both financial and non-financial metrics. Financial metrics, we have already audited it during our audited financial statements. What were they? Revenue. This we have audited. Operating profit and profit before tax. Right? So this can be extracted from or reconciled to the figure that has shown as shown in the audited financial statements, because when we were auditing the financial statements, we have already audited these things: revenue, operating profit, and profit before tax. The only things which we did audit is non-financial metrics, because they are not in the audited financial state. They do not come in the financial statements. Okay. But before that, you started with issues to provide this kind of service, because remember, auditors, they are bound. They cannot provide every kind of service. Some services they cannot provide. That's why there are issues. Okay. While the KPIs will not form part of the audited financial statements, do they form part? No, they do not form part of audited financial statements. So therefore, they will be published in the annual report and therefore form part of other information in relation to which the auditor has responsibilities under ISA 720. You have to make reference to the auditing standard. According to the auditing standard, do they have responsibilities for this other information? If they have, then yes, they can audit. If they don't have, then they cannot audit. So in this case, they have, right? The auditor's responsibilities relating to other information. So what does the auditing standard says here? ISA 720 requires that auditors read the other information in order to identify any material inconsistencies between the financial information and the other information, financial statements and other information. Okay. There is therefore a potential self-review threat to objectivity. You have to make sure the 5 types of threat: self-review, self-interest, familiarity, advocacy, and intimidation threat. You have to link this to the ethical, the 5 code of ethics, that is objectivity, integrity, and all those things. Okay, so this is which kind of threat and to which code of ethics. This is a self-review threat. Why self-review threat? Because he is only doing it and he's only reviewing it again. It's like you're correcting your own work. So it's a self-review. You're reviewing by yourself, right? So self-review threat to objectivity. You're not being independent now. Your decisions will be what the company wants. The auditor are not independent now. So that's why it's a threat to objectivity. Okay, you have to link like this when it's an ethical question. Your marks is there to identify this correctly. Threat to what? Threat to objectivity. In that, the audit firm, how it is threat to objectivity, we'll see here. In that, the audit firm has been asked to provide assurance, because they've been asked to provide assurance on this KPIs, which would be read by the audit team as a part of their review of the other information, right? The team performing the assurance work would be reluctant to raise queries or highlight errors which may have been made during the external audit when reading the other information. What happened? The team that is giving, see, assurance work is done by someone else and audit work is done by someone else. Okay, that means assurance for other services. So when that guy who was doing the assurance work, okay, when he was performing that, he might have he might be reluctant to raise queries, or he might be reluctant to highlight errors also. He might just have left it like that. Okay, which may have been made during the external audit when reading the other information. Okay, credit will be awarded for discussion of other relevant threats to objectivity created by providing an assurance service to on KPIs, including the advocacy thread and self-interest thread. You can say advocacy because they are advocating on behalf of the company, and self-interest because the auditor might also have some self-interest there. Next, the IESBA, International Code of Ethics for Professional Accountants. They provide guidance when auditors provide additional services to an audit client. So somewhat from here you can like copy paste. You can just memorize some answers. Because this is an ethics and ethical question, you will anyway get for every sitting, you will get ethical questions. Some things you can copy paste. Like this part, when you're providing additional services. Okay, so who provides guidance? IESBA. They provide guidance when auditors provide additional service to an audit client. So chief and company, they need to evaluate the significance of the threat and consider whether any safeguard can reduce the threat to an acceptable level or not. You always have to see this, what is the significance of the threat and are there any safeguard to reduce it to an acceptable level. For example, a partner who is independent should be involved in reviewing the audit work performed. Independent should be involved in reviewing the audit work performed, because this reduces the significance of the threat. That means there will be, what was the threat? Self-review threat. So that self-review threat you can reduce by using someone who is independent. Okay, that means someone else is performing the audit work and someone else is looking for the assurance services, not the same person. The assurance team and the audit team are different. That's why they're independent. There is also an ethical issue in respect to the fee proposed by the payroll company for the assurance engagement. Remember they told that they will increase 20% of the fee if they provide audit for this assurance engagement? If the firm decides to take on the engagement, it should be treated as an engagement separate from the audit and with a separate fee charged for the work and confirmed in a separate engagement letter. The suggestion is to simply amend and increase the audit fee. This is the suggestion you are giving. And to determine it on a contingent basis. What is the meaning of contingent basis? Based on some condition, you will be given this fee. As the fee is only payable if the assurance is favorable. If not, then it is not appropriate. Sorry, as the fee is only payable if the assurance is favorable, is not appropriate. If it is on the contingent basis that I will give you fee only if the assurance is favorable, otherwise I will not give you, it's not appropriate. Okay. That means that suggestion that simply you will amend and increase the audit fee is not appropriate. So contingent fees can give rise to self-interest threat. This is another kind of threat, right? Because usually you will be induced by that, right? The auditor will be induced by that high increase in fees. So they definitely want to take that fees, even if what they're doing is unethical. So it's a self-interest threat. Now they have an interest in that fee. So it is a self-interest threat. As it is in the financial interest. Why self-interested? Because it is in the financial interest of the audit firm now to give a favorable assurance in order to secure their income. But remember, the code prohibit the use of contingent fees for audit services. You cannot say that if it's favorable, then you will receive this fee. Code says no. But they allow for other types of work. For audit services, no, but other types of work, yes. What is this? Depending on factors such as the nature of the engagement and the range of possible fee outcomes. But what is the most prudent course of action? Should they take on the engagement? Would be to charge the fee on a non-contingent basis. Okay, just the most prudent course of action. That remember always to give actions also. It's not enough that you just write ethical issues. You always have to give actions what they should do, what the auditor should do. Actions you have to give. Okay, for that also you'll be given marks. So the charge, okay, you can say increase the fee, but that charge and the fee should be on a non-contingent basis. Okay, and they should be separate from the audit fee. Audit fee separate, this is separate. Why? To remove any ethical issues relating to the fee. So there is no ethical issue now which is related to the fee. Okay, if they are separated. So that is an action. Okay, the last one which we are saying, to separate, to not give the fee on the non-contingent basis, these are all actions that they are saying. For this you will get marks. It's same for SBR also. Whenever you are giving some actions to the accountant and all, you will get marks. Here you are giving the actions to the auditor. Only the person is changed. So aside from the ethical issues, remember they told other issues also you have to tell. Okay. Chief and company must also consider whether they have the competence to perform the work. Whether they have that, whether they can perform that assurance or not, that they have to see. Providing assurance on non-financial KPIs is quite a specialized area. And it could be that the audit firm does not have the appropriate level of expertise. They might not have, yes, an experience to provide a quality service. So in particular, the firm would need to ensure that it fully understands the goal, standard, accreditation, given that this is a specialized industry and this is the first client which Chief and Co has in the industry. So it is therefore questionable whether the firm has the competency to carry out the work. First of all, it's a new area, new first client who is in such a specialized field. So for that field you are giving assurance services, it's quite questionable, right? But if they have an experience, okay. If the auditing company has huge amount of experience in that field, then there is no doubt about it. But in this case, it is. Aside from the competence, the firm should also consider whether it has resources in terms of staff to complete the work to the desired deadline, and to perform appropriate reviews of the work which has been completed. Because they told that other accounting issues also you have to give apart from the ethical issues. Let me take you back to the requirements again. You see, other audit planning implications also you have to give apart from ethical issues. So these are other audit planning issues only you are giving implications. One is the competence, whether they have the resources in terms of staff. 1, 2 you have given, okay? And yeah, these are the two things you have given. Next, we are going to the incentive payment. Mark York has suggested that incentive payments are routine. This is, you are talking both in terms of ethical issues also and other accounting implications also. Sorry, other audit planning implications also. Okay. First, let us talk from the ethical perspective. It's routine, but it could be against the law. So the incentive payment raises concerns that the company may not be complying with the relevant law and regulations. The incentive payment could be a bribe and an illegal payment. Make sure that you use these words, okay? Bribe, illegal payment, and all. So because of this, what happens? Which ethical principle is being breached? Integrity. Integrity. It indicates a lack of integrity of management. Managements are not honest and they are not straightforward. So as clearly, Mark York is aware of the payment and seems to be justifying it. Because of this, you can say they are not integral. They are not honest. Because they know about this payment, still they are justifying it. Because if they don't know about the payment, okay, we can say maybe they don't have they have lack of knowledge about it. But here they know it clearly, so that's why we can say it's a lack of integrity. Next paragraph. You see, every paragraph has something different to say. Don't write everything in one paragraph. You have to make it a habit and have the skill that you write in different paragraphs, and each paragraph should mean something. Okay. Here they are talking about 250. So the auditor also needs to consider the requirements of IASA 250. What is IASA 250? Consideration of laws and regulations in an audit of financial statements. So according to this, what does it state? That it is the management's responsibility to ensure that the entity's operations are conducted in accordance with the provisions of laws and regulations. You have to bring out the standard here to get points. The auditor does have some responsibility in relation to the compliance with laws and regulations, especially where non-compliance has an impact on the financial statements. Then auditor has some responsibility, but the major responsibility lies with the management. Next. Therefore, the auditor should ensure that they have a full knowledge and understanding. See, you are giving actions, what they should do and what they should have. They should have the full knowledge and understanding of the law, rules and regulations. And also, what are the implications of non-compliance? IS 250 says that non-compliance is identified or suspected. When it is identified or suspected, the auditor shall obtain an understanding of the nature of the act and the circumstances in which it has occurred. As soon as the auditor comes to know that there's a non-compliance, what should auditor do? They should see what is the nature of that act, why it is non-compliant, what are the circumstances that led it from not being complied. Auditor should check this. And further information to evaluate the possible effect on the financial statements. What could be the effect on this non-compliance on the financial statement? That also auditor should evaluate. Therefore, the procedure should be performed to obtain evidence about the. You see, you are giving actions. All these are actions that you are telling auditor to do. What they should do. So the procedure should be performed to obtain evidence about suspected not compliance. You just cannot say they didn't comply. Where is the evidence? You have to obtain evidence. For example, to obtain any documentation which may exist to support Mark York's claim that the payment is in the normal course of business. First of all, you have to obtain any documentation that says that okay, that they are claim that this is a regular payment or the payment is in the normal course of businesses. Correct. The planned audit procedures would be sufficient for the audit team to conclude. Okay. This would be sufficient for the audit team to conclude on the accounting treatment and on whether the auditor has a reporting responsibilities outside the company. For example, to communicate a breach of anti-corruption legislation to the appropriate authorities. Okay. Next, ISO 250. Okay. ISO 250 also requires that matter to be discussed with management and where appropriate. First, you have to discuss this with the management. And wherever it is appropriate, those charged with governance also. Given the potential impact of the new story, further, you have to see the impact of this on the company's reputation. The matter should be discussed as soon as possible. Given the impact, because the impact is so huge of that media, that this should be immediately discussed. You should not delay it. Because if you delay, then gone. Finally, there appears to be an intimidation thread also. 3 types of thread now: self-review, self-interest, intimidation also. Why? Intimidation means when you are pressurizing someone to do something which is unethical. So Mark York, he is the CFO, has urged the audit team. He knows what he is doing is wrong. So what did he do? He urged the audit team not to investigate the incentive payment, attempting to restrict the audit team's ability to obtain the audit evidence. Because if audit team does not investigate them, they will not get that audit evidence. It will be limited in relation to the payment. Be very specific to your answer when you're writing, okay? Relation to what? This is relating to payment. So according to ISA 210, which is agreeing the terms of audit engagements, management of a client should acknowledge their responsibility to provide the auditor. Okay. The manager of your client should give you, they have that responsibility to provide you with all the information that you need to get the evidence according to ISA 210. Okay. With access to all the information which is relevant to the preparation of the financial statements. They cannot say, I'm not going to give you the information. When the auditor asks the client, their managers to supply them with the information that they need in the preparation of financial statements, they have to give it to the auditor, which includes unrestricted access. There is no restriction for auditor to person within the entity from whom the auditor determines it necessary to obtain audit evidence, because auditors need this to obtain the evidence. Okay, sufficient appropriate audit evidence. The comment, whenever they make a comment, definitely they'll be making some comment when it comes to ethical issues and all. Mention that in your answer as well. So the comment by Mark York. Comment by whom? Mark York. This would appear to be an imposed limitation on the scope of the audit. And the audit engagement partner should raise this issue with the company's management team. Next. CFO would appear to lack integrity. The CFO now. We are talking about CFO. Mark York. He appears to lack integrity as well, as he is trying to keep the issue a secret. That's why he is lacking integrity. So the audit engagement partner should consider whether other representations made by Mark York should be treated with an added emphasis on professional skepticism. So now, because it's lacking integrity, now the audit engagement partner, they should also think that can they rely on everything what Mark York has said, or whether they should do some additional, what do I say? Or they are looking him with professional skepticism now, doubting. And the risk of, so don't say doubting, use these words, professional skepticism and all. Now you have to see Mark York with an open eye. Be more careful of the statement that he utters, what he says. You cannot believe completely what he says because he's lacking integrity, first of all. Someone who is lacking integrity, you cannot believe in his statement. You should always be more skepticism towards them. That means critical of what they are saying, of any evidence or document they are giving you. And the risk of management bias leading to the risk of material statement, misstatement could be high. So this is could be high. This should be discussed during the audit team briefing meeting. Now finally conclusion. How do you conclude? So this briefing notes highlight. You start with what do they highlight with. Again, you are starting from beginning. It's like summarizing whatever you have discussed till now. So the briefing notes highlights the company faces significant business risk. What did you first wrote in the introduction? You started with what? Evaluating business risk. Exactly, the conclusion also has to be very similar. Conclusion is not a new piece of information. Whatever you have done only, you are writing again, but you are summarizing it. So it starts with, it highlights significant business risk that the company faces. Okay. In relation to what? In relation to its financial position and the recent storm damage. Okay. Something which are very significant, you are writing in the conclusion. Storm damage is very significant. Okay, so this you have to write in conclusion. There are a number of significant audit risks as well, the second requirement, which will need to be carefully considered during the planning of the audit. You see, when do you see the audit risk? During the planning of the audit, to ensure that an appropriate audit strategy is devised. Going concern should be a key focus of the audit. You see, something which is very important, which is a key, like not everything you are writing. This is the audit risk, this is the business risk, not all the risk you are writing in your conclusion. No. Out of all the audit risk, you have to be very you have to use your judgment. Okay, what do you think is a key risk? So here, going concern. Okay, going concern should be a key focus of the audit. Definitely it should be a key focus of the audit. We need to perform. You see, we need to perform. The audit manager is saying this. You are the audit manager who is saying this to the engagement or the audit engagement partner. We need to perform detailed work. You are giving them action. What should you do further because of this now? Perform detailed work on a highly material change in the fair value of the timber plantation due to the recent storm. Be very specific to the case study, okay, as detailed in the notes. What did you write all this? All this is like detailed, okay, briefing notes. Before the conclusion and after the introduction, whatever you wrote in between, it is known as notes only, just detailed briefing notes only, okay. You're writing this under briefing notes. Finally, there are several, you see, all the requirements step by step you're writing in the conclusion only. First you talked about business risk, then about audit risk, now about then about audit procedure, then ethics. Finally, there are several ethical matters to be discussed with the management and incorporated into our audit planning. Then we are talking about the assurance engagement. So the assurance engagement on the company's KPI should only go ahead. Okay, once all ethical implications have been carefully evaluated and appropriate safeguards are put in the place, then only you can go ahead with the assurance engagement. Okay, so that's it. This is like a conclusion, final conclusion you're giving. So if you see the introduction and the conclusion, they are very much similar. Introduction told this is what you are going to do. Conclusion said this is what you have done. And this is the final result that you have to go for assurance engagement after all the safeguards are there in place. You see, there's a link. There should always be link in your introduction, in your middle part, main body and conclusion, what you're writing. All these things, so what you're writing in the conclusion is what you have discussed already in detail in your briefing note. Okay, conclusion and introduction, you can write it. What you need to work out is in the main body, middle part. How much you're going to write, how much depth is required. Okay, some things you have to write in so much detail if the marks are 10, 20 marks. Some things if it's for 3 marks, 4 marks, 5 marks, writing it in briefly will give you marks. Okay, so that's it. I hope that you find this video useful, and I'm so sorry that I will not be able to upload any more past paper for audit before the September exam due to time pressure, right? I'll be making other videos on other subjects as well. So, but definitely I will be making on question 2 and 3 of this paper, March, June 2021 paper. So till then, see you and take care, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I will be coming shortly with the revision series, the 3-day revision series for advanced audit and assurance as well as audit and assurance. So see you there and take care, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel.